Okay, so this is our review session on preemptive bidding and duplicate scoring. Both of those we covered last week in class. So before we get going, anybody have any questions other than why was the timing so messed up? And I apologize for that. That was all on me. So all of our meetings will be at 1:30 in the afternoon, no matter what you hear from me. Okay, any other questions? All right, then let's take a look at preemptive bidding. All right. Okay. Now we are entering a new section in our beginning bridge trip. The first part of the class, we were talking about bidding when the opponents are not bidding. And that happens a lot. We do follow those rules a lot of the time. But more often, the opponents get into the bidding, or the opponents have opened and you want to get into the bidding. So this is the first where we start talking about that. And the first type of that interfering in an auction that we're going to talk about is preemptive bidding. Now, preemptive bidding is just what it sounds like. Preempt. You take the aggression away from the opponents by doing it yourself. You preempt their actions by doing something yourself. Now, you can do this before they bid, or you can do this after they bid. But in any case, what we're talking about is a jump to the 2 level or the 3 level or even the 4 level as an opening bid. We're just going to jump in and open the bidding with 3 spades or 2 hearts, whatever. It's going to be an opening bid, or it's going to be a jump bid. So the opponents may say 1 club and you may say 3 diamonds or 3 hearts. It's always a jump bid, and it is preemptive. And what this means is there's a couple of things about it is, because it seems crazy that we would just jump into the bidding that way at that high of a level. Why would we do that? Well, it does a couple of things. First of all, it describes our hand in one bid. And we've talked about the fact that we really like to bid 1 no trump if we can, because it describes our hand in one bid. And that's always really valuable if you can do that. If you can describe your hand in one bid, excellent. You know, that's the best way to make a bid. If your bid means one thing and only one thing, that's the most descriptive thing you can do. So that's the first thing, is describes your hand in one bid. And the second reason that we do it, the reason we jump like this, is it takes up room that makes it hard for the opponents to bid. It interferes with their bidding. So it's both descriptive and disruptive. Or we could say it's constructive and obstructive. So it's doing 2 things at once. And the third thing it does is it helps identify a possible lead for your partner. So the rules for making an opening bid or any kind of preemptive bid is, first of all, less than an opening hand. Less than an opening hand. If you have an opening hand, even if you have 7 clubs in it, you're just going to open it 1 club. But if you have less than an opening hand and 7 clubs, you may open it 3 clubs. So these preemptive bids, the bids that are jump bids at the higher levels, describe a long suit that is less than an opening hand. The second thing you need to have is a solid long suit. And the solid suit is defined as 2 of the top 3 or 3 of the top 5 honors. And the honors are the ace, king, queen, jack, 10. So if you have 2 of the top 3, that's 2 of the ace, king, queen, either the ace, king, king, queen, the ace, queen, or you have 3 of the top 5, that suit is good enough to open as a preempt. Otherwise, if your suit is not that good and you're less than an opening hand, you're just going to pass. Another thing we want to see is we want most of the high cards to be in the long suit. Now, usually if your suit is a good suit and you're less than an opening hand, you can't afford to have that much outside the suit. Otherwise, if you have a lot of points outside the suit, it's going to put you into an opening hand. But usually you should have no more than one king or queen. I mean, one more king, one or more, no more than one king or ace outside of your preemptive suit. And then the last rule we like to follow is we prefer to have no outside 4-card major. Now that's less important than the other 3. So if you forget that one, don't worry about it.
So Sally, back to number 3, more than one outside king or queen. So that if I'm saying I've got eight clubs, then I don't want a king or a queen and more than one king or ace in diamonds, hearts, or spades.
That's right. You don't want a lot of points outside. The whole purpose of this is to say to partner, I have this really good suit and that's all I have. This hand is only good if you and I want to bid it in this suit. Otherwise, it's a good suit for defense. A good hand for defense. And so if you have points outside of your suit, that makes it better for defense. So then you don't want to do the preemptive bid. But as I say, that one usually takes care of itself more or less, because if we follow the rule that you have to have less than an opening hand and you have to have a solid suit, 2 of the top 3 or 3 of the top 5, well, once you take those points and are still less than an opening hand, there's not much space to have a lot of points outside of the suit. So it usually takes care of itself. Okay, so here is how the bid works then. If you have 6 in the suit, you open at the 2 level. So if you have 6 hearts or 6 spades, you'll open 2 hearts or 2 spades. And when you're doing that, you're pretty much telling your partner, I have 1 less than the number of tricks I'm bidding. So because if your suit is good, you should be able to deliver that much. So if you bid 2 hearts, meaning you have 6, as your partner, I'm going to assume you have about 5 tricks in your hand. You may not, or you may have 6 tricks in your hand, but I'm just going to assume 5 tricks. If you have 7 in a suit, you'll open at the 3 level, and that assumes you have about 6 tricks. And if you have 8 in a suit, you open at the 4 level. Now, this doesn't happen very often, but today I do a mentoring group in the morning on Sundays, and one of the first hands we had, they had 8 cards in one hand in one suit, and another hand at the table had 8 cards in a suit. I've never seen that before. It frequently happens that if somebody's real distributional, other hands are distributional, so that's not unusual. But to have 2 8-card suits in 2 different hands was pretty unusual.
Sally?
Yes.
Preemptive bid can be done to open a suit, to open the bidding. Can you do that?
Yes, it can be done to open the bidding, or it can be done after the opponents have opened the bidding. So either way, it can be an original bid for your team, or it can be what's called an overcall bid after the opponents have bid. So it can be done either way. Either way is designed to disrupt the bidding for the opponents is the main reason for it.
So only opening with 13 points, that's thrown out the window for this?
That's right, because we have a special rule for the preemptive bids, yeah. So but you have to be preempting. You have to bid at the 2 or the 3 or the 4 level, which seems kind of counterintuitive. We say, if you've got 13 points, you open at the 1 level, but if you have less, you can open at the 2, 3, or 4 level. Realize it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it is a descriptive bid of your hand. And if you really do have the good solid suit that you're supposed to have, you should have a good source of tricks in your hand. So that's why it's safe to do that. Let me point out one other thing. it mentions that if you have 6 in a suit, you open at the 2 level, except for clubs. And remember, we've talked about the fact that we've said that all of our opening bids are between 13 and 21 points. Because if we have 22 points or more, we use that special bid of 2 clubs. So 2 clubs can't mean a really strong hand of 22 points or more and a preemptive bid of 2 clubs. So we have to choose that it means one thing or the other. And in standard American, we choose that 2 clubs means a very strong hand. So even if you have 6 good clubs and less than an opening hand, you cannot open 2 clubs to mean a preemptive bid. Does that make sense to everybody? We aren't covering 2 club bids in our beginning bridge class because that's kind of advanced, but that is what the bid means. It's 22 or more points. And so we can't use that to describe also a 6-card suit. We have to choose one or the other. Okay. So let's talk about some other considerations then. The first thing is that jump shifts in competition are preemptive. And so that's what we've been talking about. It's you can jump, you can do a preemptive bid as the opening bidder, or if the opponents have bid, that means they are in competition, they have made a bid, then any jump that you do, any jump shift that you do is preemptive. So if they've opened 1 club and you bid 3 hearts, that means just the same thing as if you had just opened 3 hearts yourself. So it's both in competition and not in competition. Also,
Why are we distinguishing between competition and not competition?
competition is where the opponents are bidding. That's all it means, that the opponents have bid something.
Okay, thank you.
Now, this is a little advanced, so if this is confusing to anybody, don't worry about it too much, but the position that you're in makes a little bit of a difference. If you were the first person or the second person to bid on this hand, only preempt if the suit is really solid, just like we said, 2 of the top 3 or 3 of the top 5, when you were the first or the second person to bid. But if you're the third person to bid, you can preempt pretty much no matter what, even if your suit's not that good. And the reason for that is that your partner has already passed. So we know your partner doesn't have an opening hand. And if you don't have an opening hand and your partner doesn't have an opening hand, who has the points?
Opponents.
Yeah, the opponents have the points. So you really want to get in the bidding with a preemptive bid if you can when you're in the third seat. You don't want to go totally crazy if you're vulnerable and they're not, which means you would lose more than they would. Maybe you don't want to. But in general, if you're in the third seat, your suit doesn't have to be quite as good. You can preempt with a little bit less. And then the last thing to remember is if you are in the last seat to open, we do not preempt. Now, why do you think that would be true? Why would we not preempt in the 4th seat?
Because we already know that the partner doesn't have much.
Yeah, the point of preempt is to interfere with the opponents. Part of it is to describe your hand, but most of it is to interfere with the opponents. Well, if the opponents aren't bidding, you're just interfering with yourself. So when you're in 4th position, do not preempt, do not open 2 or 3 of something, just open. You know, if you have a hand that if you had been in 1st or 2nd position, you would have opened 2 hearts. In 4th position, just say 1 heart, because you can
Even though you don't have 13 points.
even though you don't have 13 points if you're in 4th position. Now, like I said, this is a little bit advanced. So if this doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. Just don't do it. Just don't preempt in 4th position, but don't worry about opening light this way.
Well, wait a minute. If everybody has bid and you open with 1 heart.
Yeah.
Aren't you telling your partner that you have got 13 points?
You are. Your partner is going to expect that, except
And 5 hearts.
your partner needs not to remember the same rules you are. which is in fourth position, you may open light. In third position, you can also open a little bit light. That's why I say this is a little advanced. We don't usually teach this in beginning bridge. In beginning bridge, we just teach you to follow the same rules in every position. But
Okay.
pretty soon you learn that the position that you're sitting in makes a little bit of a difference.
So I have 13 points
Mhm.
and 4 hearts. So I could open with that?
Yes, in fourth position, but you can't open two. You would, well, no, you can't open one heart. You should follow the rules and open something else. But if you have 6 hearts, and ordinarily you would have opened 2 hearts, you can open 1 heart in fourth position.
But I can't have 4 cards. 4 hearts. Has to
You got
be,
that, Corey?
I know I'm slow today, sorry.
Ordinarily,
I'm laughing at myself. Trust me.
ordinarily you want to have 5 cards in a major suit to open the major suit. So I'm saying that even if you're a little light, if you have 6 cards in that fourth position, you can open. Think about this. In the fourth position, everybody else is passed, right? Pass, pass, pass. It's up to you. You can pass and throw the hand in, and we go on and deal out the next hand and go on and bid there. Or you can get into the bidding. And that's always the question. Is it a good idea to get into the bidding or not get into the bidding? There's even some special rules that we use in fourth position to decide whether or not we want to bid. And I'm just telling you that one of the things you can think about in the fourth position is if I have a hand that I would have been willing in the first or second position to open 2 hearts, I can also open it in fourth position. But since we don't preempt in fourth position, I would just open it as 1 heart.
I have a question.
Yeah. Hey,
If you're in
Clayton,
the
it's
fourth
good to see you. This is the
Yeah.
first time we've seen you, right?
I was on last week for a
Oh,
little
were
bit.
you? Okay. I guess
I
I didn't
joined
see
late.
you. I guess I didn't see you after the recording got going. Anyway, welcome.
Thank you. I'm a little confused that if you're in the fourth seat, how can you, and I don't have 13 points.
No, But you-
Someone didn't bid.
that's right. That's right. It's
They
gone
should
past.
have.
It's gone
It's not
past,
possible
past,
to get to
past.
me and someone not have 13 points.
Well, because everybody could have about 10 points. If you have about 10 points, that means everybody else has about 10 points. Or else somebody didn't open who could have opened.
I'm just skeptical. It seems to me that if I get to the fourth seat, someone didn't bid that should have.
Well, that's possible, but it is possible because there's 40 points in the deck and each of you could have about 10. And then it would have gone pass, 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 and it comes to you and you've got about 10 points, but you've got a good 6-card heart suit.
Okay,
So you can open 1 heart.
thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's think about responses here for a minute. Usually what you're going to do is pass. Usually what you're going to do is pass. If you have no fit and little hope for gain, you're definitely going to pass. But you need to think about this. If your partner, let's say your partner is open 3 spades.
Hold
And
on,
you've got
hold on. Is this a response to a preemptive bid that our partner made?
That's right. This is a response to an opening preemptive bid by your partner. Your partner has opened 3 spades and you're trying to decide whether to bid. And let's say you have an opening hand. And ordinarily we say, well, an opening hand against an opening hand, that should be a game. But you need to remember that your partner is not an opening hand if they have preempted. As a matter of fact, they are promising they're less than an opening hand. So if they're, and I usually consider, just to help me figure out what I should bid, I just usually assume my partner has about 10 points. Well, if my partner has about 10 points, I need to have like 16 points to hope to have a 26-point game. Does that make sense to everybody? So if I just have a minimum opening hand, I should pass. We don't have a game. If I've got 16 points or more, I might consider that we might have a game. If we don't have a fit, if partner has bid two hearts and I don't have many points and I don't have any hearts, I should still just pass. There's no way to fix this without getting too high. That's part of the, they talk about preempts being a double-edged sword, and that's part of the double-edged sword part of this. That not only are you cutting your opponents out of the bidding, you're taking up bidding space for you and your partner. It's just that if you have a good suit that is a source of tricks, it should be okay to do that, at least to the level that you're bidding. But your partner has to really watch out. And remember that most of the time after your partner has preempted, especially if they have bid at the 3 level, you just pass. You don't do anything. Now, if you have a fit with partner, you may want to raise. And the real reason you may want to do this there's two. If you might be able to make game because you have a good hand and a fit, or if you have support, but you have a very weak hand. In either one of those two positions, you may want to raise your partner's preempt. And you would raise it using what we call the law of total tricks. The law of total tricks. This is something you need to remember because we're going to refer to it a lot in the rest of the class, because it comes into play in overcalls and in responding to overcalls and in responding to take out doubles, all of those. We need to know the law of total tricks. The law of total tricks, there's a long explanation. If you want to Google law of total tricks, you'll find a couple of page explanation on law of total tricks, which talks about the fact that if one pair has the magic fit, at least 8 cards in a suit, the other pair has at least an 8-card fit. That's what the law of total tricks says. And sort of the corollary, what comes out of this fact is that a partnership should be safe, bidding to the level that they have trump between them. So if your partner has 6 and you have 3 of their suit, that's a total of 9 trump between you. You should be able to bid to the level of 3, which is your book of 6 plus 3. You should be able to bid to the level of 3 and be safe. Now, this doesn't mean that you're safe and that you will make it. It means that you are safe and that it will be better for you to have to bid than to let the opponents have to bid. You should go down less than it would be if you let your partners bid and make whatever they can make. So the law of total tricks, we use that a lot when we have a fit with our partner and we want to decide, should we raise? Well, if our partner has promised 6 in a suit and we have 3, we might raise to the 3 level, or if we have 4, we might raise to the 4 level. If they have bid 3 hearts, promising 7 tricks, if we have 3 in the suit, we might raise to the 4 level because 7 and 3 is 10. That's the 4 level. Is this making sense to everybody?
Sure.
No. The law of total tricks just says that we are safe to bid to the level we have tricks between us. So if your partner is telling you that they have 6 and you have 4, it's the law of total tricks tells us that we should be safe. We should be okay bidding to the 4 level. Now, we don't always want to do that because a lot of things can come into play. We may be vulnerable and they're not, or they may not be willing to go that high, in which case we've gone that high for nothing. So you don't necessarily have to jump up there, but sometimes if you are really weak, you would just want to jump up there, particularly if you're weak, because you figure if you're really weak and your partner has less than an opening hand, if you're figuring your partner who has opened a preempt, you're figuring them for about 10 points, and you've got 2 or 3 points yourself. How many points do the opponents have?
Game.
They've got enough for a game somewhere. So the fewer points you have, the more you want just to jump to game yourself. You're not going to make it, but you would rather go down 1 or 2 or even 3 than let them easily bid and make a game that you know that they have. This is part of the competitive bidding process that we're talking about for the rest of the class. When we were talking about just us bidding, it's a little bit clearer what level we should bid to, how high we should go, and where we should be. But when the opponents are interfering, or when you're interfering with the opponents, sometimes it's not as clear where you belong. And that's what we want to do. And that's one of the reasons we do preemptive bidding, is to make it difficult for the opponents to find where they belong, while being pretty sure that that's where you and your partner belong, at least as in that suit. Okay, so first 2 things we've talked about then when partner is open to preempt is, first, generally you're going to pass. You might raise using the law of total tricks if you think you can make a game, or more often, you have support but a very weak hand. Then you're just going to jump up to whatever the level the law of total tricks tells you to jump to. Now, the final thing is, if it's possible you have a game, but you're unsure about a game, you can bid a new suit. Bid a new suit. If you bid a new suit as the responder, that is forcing. Your partner has to bid again. And what your partner should do is, generally you're promising about 5 if you bid a new suit, because partner has already promised 6 or 7. So you shouldn't go looking for a new suit unless you've got a good suit. So if you want to bid a new suit, that's forcing. And if opener has support for your suit, they'll raise your suit. If not, you'll just rebid the preemptive suit. One other thing you can do is bid 2 no trump after the preemptive 2 bid. So after a bid of 2 diamonds or 2 hearts or 2 spades, you can bid 2 no trump. And 2 no trump doesn't really mean 2 no trump. It means, partner, do you have a feature in your hand? And a feature means, do you have an ace or a king in your hand so that I have a way to get to your hand if I need to? Because remember, when we talk about opening as a preempt, we've talked about the fact that you shouldn't have a lot of cards outside of the suit. So if partner has a long suit, they probably have no other way to get to their hand, or you should assume that. And so if partner has opened at the 2 level, you can bid 2 no trump to say, partner, is there any other way to get to your hand? If there is, frequently you want to bid 3 no trump. And so what would happen is, partner might open 2 hearts, you would bid 2 no trump, partner would say 3 diamonds. What do you think 3 diamonds would mean?
An honor in diamonds.
Right, it means they have the ace of diamonds, or they've got the king and a small diamond, so that you should be able to use either one of those to get to their hand. And if they have that, and they have a solid suit and hearts, then you might want to play 3 no trump. Or maybe you were a little weak and you just wanted to know if partner had another way to get to their hand, but you do have a couple of hearts, then you could raise to 4 hearts.
But you can never bid a 2 no trump in this situation if you don't have a balanced hand.
That's right. 2 no trump over a opening 2 bid does not mean no trump. It means, partner, do you have a feature? So
So
partner cannot pass 2 no trump. So you can't use it to mean, partner, I want to play at 2 no trump.
Okay.
Now this is standard. You could have an agreement with partner that you're not playing that. Okay, you can always have an agreement that you're not playing one of these things. But this is standard, is that's what 2 no trump means.
But you have to announce that
No,
to your
it's not
opponent.
announceable or alertable because it's standard. But if you're not playing that, you need to alert that. You need to say that's a natural 2 no trump. It doesn't ask for a feature. This is a little bit advanced, guys. So if, don't worry about this. if you just don't bid to no trump, you don't need to worry about it. It's not going to come up. Just don't make that bid. Okay, one other thing I just want to mention, just because it shows on the convention card, it says RONF. And a lot of people ask what that means. And it means it's over week 2, the opening 2-level bids. And all it means is a raise is the only non-forcing bid. Turn that around, it means that any new suit is forcing. So if partner has opened a 2-level bid, 2 diamonds, 2 hearts, or 2 spades, any new suit that you bid as the responder is forcing to your partner must bid again. The raise is the only bid that they can pass. Okay. That question doesn't come up too much, but when you're first playing using the convention cards, a lot of times you see that RONF and go, what the heck does that mean? And by the time you get to look at this later, you're probably still going to ask the question because you won't remember this discussion. You've got enough else on your plate right now, right? Okay, let's do some examples here. Let's look at the first one. Okay, we've got a singleton 8 of spades. We've got the king, queen, jack, 10, 8, 5 of hearts, 9, 5, 2 of diamonds, and the king, 10, 4 of clubs. What are we going to bid with this hand?
2 hearts.
2 hearts. We've got less than opening hand because we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 points. And we've got a 6-card heart suit. And is this heart suit good enough? Is it a good solid suit?
Yes.
Yes, we've got 4 of the top 5, right? King, queen, jack, 10. So that's definitely a 2-heart opening bid. Let's look at this one. Here we've got the ace, queen, jack of spades for 7 points and the jack of clubs for 8 points. Are we going to want to open this hand?
2 spades.
2 spades. Is this spade suit good enough?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we've got 3 of the top 5. We've got 2 of the top 3 with the ace queen and 3 of the top 5. Let's look at this one. We've got 7, 11, 12, 13 points. We've got a 6-card heart suit. Does the 6-card heart suit meet our definition of being good enough?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
we've got 3 of the top 5, the ace, king, 10. How do we want to open this hand?
1 heart.
1 heart. We've got too many points to open at 2 hearts because we counted 13 points. Okay, let's look at this one. We've got 5 points in spades. We've got 4 points in hearts. So that's 9, 10, 11 points. We've got a good heart suit with the king, jack, 10. So it's good enough for a 2-heart bid. How do we want to open this hand?
Well, you got the 4 spades. Does
Yeah.
that make a difference?
Yeah, because we don't like to open it when we have an outside 4-card major suit. That's one thing. And what's another reason we wouldn't want to preempt with this hand?
Got 13 points.
Well, no, it's only got 11 points, I think. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, 11.
Oh, it's got 2 outside honors.
Yes, you've got more points outside the suit than you've got inside the suit. See that you've got 5 points outside the suit, you've only got 4 points inside the suit. When you're in that position, when you've got something else that makes this hand a good defensive hand also, then you don't preempt. So this one we would just pass and see what happens. You might come back in later with a heart bid because that suit is good enough to bid, but we just wouldn't open it 2 hearts. Okay, let's look at this next one, number 5. Here we've got the ace, queen, 10. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9 points. That's all the points we have in this hand. Is this spade suit good enough? Is it 2 of the top 3 or 3 of the top 5?
Yes.
Yeah, We've got 2 of the top 3 with the ace queen. We've also got 3 of the top 5 with the ace queen 10. So either way you look at it, it's good enough. So how would we open this hand?
3 spades.
3 spades. We've got 7, so we bid at the 3 level. Let's look at this next one. Again, we have 7 spades. Oh, wait, we've got 8 spades. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got the ace, king, jack, 10. So we've got 4 of the top 5. How would we open this hand?
4 hearts.
4 hearts. When we have 8 in the suit and a solid suit like that, we open 4. And we should be able to make about 8 tricks just in our own hand. So if our partner just has a couple of other winners, maybe 3 other winners, we should definitely be able to make 4 hearts. Let's look at this number 7. What about this one? We've got 7, 1, 2, 3. We've got 8 clubs, 8 clubs with the queen 10. We've got the queen of hearts and the king of spades. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 points. So we're less than an opening hand. What do we want to do with this hand?
Pass.
Pass. Very good. This hand is not strong enough to open 4. That
So
club
even-
suit is not good enough. And we've got too many points outside of the club suit. And it doesn't meet our 2 of the top 3 or 3 of the top 5 rule. Right?
Right.
Any arguments or complaints on that? Okay. Then let's look at the last one. Here we've got 10 high card points, 11, 12, 11, 12, 13, counting our length. How do we want to open this hand?
1 heart.
1
1
heart.
heart. We've got a nice solid heart suit, but because we have an opening hand, we open that 1 heart, not 3 hearts. Okay, questions on preemptive bids. Preemptive bids are really fun. If you have less than an opening hand and you have a good solid suit, you want to preempt and you want to bid at the 2 level if you have 6 or more, the 3 level if you have 7, the 4 level if you have 8. And in responding to your partner's opening bid, usually you're going to pass. If you have support, you may raise using the law of total tricks. Or if your partner is opened at the 2 level, you may bid 2 no trump to ask if they have another feature in their hand, another way to get to their hand. That might help you decide whether or not you want to go on. So those are the responses over the opening preempts.
Sally, in the bidding where it says, 6 in a suit, open 2 levels, 7 in a suit. Is there a point range also, like 6 in a suit, 6 to 8 points, 7 in a suit, 10 to 11 points
No.
or something?
It's just less than opening hand and a good enough suit. And if you follow those rules, you don't need to worry about the number of points. But usually it's about 5 to 8 high card points. Because if you're going to have 2 of the top 3 or 3 of the top 5, you're going to need to have at least 3 high card points, at least. That would be the queen, jack, 10 of your suit. You know what I'm saying? So it's at least 3, and usually it's more like 5 to 8 high card points. But there is no exact rule on the number of points you have to have. You just need to follow the rules. Okay, any other questions on preemptive bidding? Okay, then I want to talk about something else today. And that is duplicate scoring. All right, and here we go. Duplicate scoring. Now, you don't have to know how to score in duplicate. especially as a new person just learning how to play bridge, you may not want to know how to score in duplicate because it's just another thing you need to learn, right? It's confusing. You don't need to know how to do it. The main things you need to know are what we've said from the beginning, that if you bid 3 no trump or 4 hearts or 4 spades, you get a game bonus score. And so you want to shoot to bid one of those levels. That's why you're doing that. But we haven't really talked about the how of what you do. And the reason we don't need to talk about that is because on your bidding boxes, you always have the score available. If you look at the back of any one of the bids that you have, like the 4 heart bid, if you look at the back of that card, it will show on there what the results are if you bid and make your contract. And it'll say, if you bid 4 hearts and make it, not vulnerable, it's 420. If you make 2, it's 450. If you make 3, it's 480. So it will tell you how many you make. It will also tell you the different amounts if it is doubled or even redoubled, which usually doesn't happen, and whether you're vulnerable or not vulnerable. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, this vulnerable versus not vulnerable. So you can always look at the back of the card to see what the bidding is. Another way you can find out what the bid is when you're actually playing in a duplicate game at the Bridge Center. We have those little handheld computers I'm sure you've seen, and they're very easy to use. I mean, it takes like 15 seconds to learn to use it, so don't be afraid of it. All you do is put in what the bid was, and then you put in what the score was, what the result was, like made 4, made 5, whatever, made an over trick, and it'll tell you what the score is. So you never really have to know how to keep score. But it is useful to know how to keep score, at least have an idea of how to keep score, basic on how to keep score. So let's talk about that. There are 2 parts to every score. There is the trick score, which is up here in this top portion. It's not letting me highlight it for some reason, but this top part. And then there is also the bonus points, which are down here at the bottom, okay? So the trick score, not doubled, and we're going to talk about doubling more in our next lesson. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about doubling today. But if it's not doubled, if somebody hasn't doubled your contract, it's just a regular contract like what we've been bidding so far. Clubs or diamonds are worth 20 points each. Hearts and spades are worth 30 points each. And no trump is a little different. No trump, the first trick is worth 40, and the next tricks are worth 30 points each. So if you bid and make 3 diamonds, you're going to get 3 times 20 points. That's 60 points. If you bid and make 3 hearts, you'll get 3 times 30 points. That's 90 points. If you bid and make 3 no trump, you will get 40 points plus 30 for the next 2. So that's 60. 40 plus 60 is 100. Anytime the trick score equals 100, you get bonus points for the game score. That's why we say 3 no trump is a game, because 40 plus 30 plus 30 is 100. That's how we know that 4 hearts or 4 spades is a game, because 4 times 30 is 120. That's a little bit over 100, but in hearts and spades, you can't make exactly 100. So it's at least 100 plus. In clubs and diamonds, 5 times 20 is 100. So anytime you have a trick score that equals 100 or more, that's a game. That's the 3 level at no trump, 4 level at hearts and spades, the 5 level at clubs and diamonds. If you make over tricks, which means you bid 4 and make 5, not doubled, which is just normal, what we've been doing all along, you just get the trick value. So if you bid 4 and make 5, you get 5 times 30 is 150 if you're bidding 5 hearts or 5 spades. If you just make 4, you get 120. 5, you get 150. So you get the trick value always if you're not vulnerable. Excuse me, if you're not doubled, if you're just normal, not doubled. And that's the same whether you're vulnerable or not vulnerable. It's always just the trick value. Now that's the tricks. Now the second part of this is the bonus points that you get. Now, if first of all, if you make a doubled or redoubled contract, you get some extra points, which we're not going to worry about those now. What we are going to worry about is the part score and the game bonus. If you bid a part score, which means you do not bid game, so you bid 2 no trump, or 3 hearts, or 3 spades, or 4 diamonds, or 4 clubs, something less than game, you get a 50-point bonus for making your contract. So if you bid 2 no trump and make 3, 2 no trump is 40 plus 30, right? Plus 3, you get another 30 for that. But because you did not bid game, you just bid a part score, you get a 50-point bonus. So in that case, you would have 40 plus 30 plus 30 plus 50 is 150. Is that making sense to everybody? If you bid below game, you get your trick score plus 50. Whatever you bid plus 50. Now, if you bid a game, so if you bid 3 no trump, 4 hearts or 4 spades, 5 clubs or 5 diamonds, you get your trick score plus you get your game bonus. If you're not vulnerable, it's 300. If you're vulnerable, it's 500. Now, this vulnerable versus not vulnerable. Vulnerable occurs, and the original reason that vulnerable existed was that when you were playing before duplicate, when you were playing regular kinds of scoring at bridge, it was called rubber bridge. And a rubber was winning 3 games. You could win 2 games in a row, in which case you would get your bonus points, or you could win 2 out of 3 games, in which case you would get your bonus points. And once you had won your first game in rubber bridge and in party bridge, they still score this way. In party bridge, once you have won a game, you are vulnerable. That means that you get a lot more points. You get 500 points if you make it, but you lose a lot more if you're going to go down, which is what we'll talk about in just a minute what happens when you go down. Not vulnerable is you had not won a game yet. Now, you need to remember this if you're keeping score in regular party bridge or social bridge, not duplicate bridge. In duplicate bridge, we always know what the vulnerability is because you've seen the trays of cards that we use when we play duplicate bridge, and there's a hand in each part of the tray. That tray tells you what the vulnerability is. Everybody could be vulnerable. East-west only could be vulnerable. North-south only could be vulnerable, or nobody could be vulnerable. So there's 4 conditions, and it will tell you on each tray which one it is, and it just assigns them. First, nobody's vulnerable, then north-south is vulnerable, then east-west is vulnerable, then everybody's vulnerable. Then nobody's vulnerable, then north-south, then east-west, etc. It just goes like that. So they're assigned in duplicate. So you don't need to know, you don't need to worry about it, who's won a game and who hasn't. But if you're keeping score in party bridge, you do need to know, because if somebody has made a game, then they get a 500 for the next game. They get 500 points, not 300 points.
So Sally, when you are playing duplicate bridge, does it keep up with that? Yeah, you've won 2 games and now therefore you're vulnerable, and then you'll be vulnerable from then on out, or
no, in duplicate, it assigns it, each board is by
it's a
itself.
random thing?
It doesn't accumulate it the way it does in social party bridge.
Okay, so it's just random.
It's
kind of
just
thing.
random. Well, it goes in order, but yeah, it's just assigned on each board. And it doesn't have anything to do with what happened on the board before. And it doesn't carry over to another board. Now,
Define board, is that each hand?
each hand, sorry.
Thank you.
Those little trays are boards. We
Right.
call them boards, and I just I use the
Okay.
term interchangeably, but I'm meaning hand, each hand.
Okay, good.
Okay, so now I just want to point this out to you. If you bid 6, that's a small slam. And if you bid 7, that is a grand slam. And for those, you get your game bonus, whatever is appropriate, plus you get a slam bonus, either 500 if you've bid at the 6th level, or 1,000 if you've bid at the grand slam level. And if you're vulnerable, it's even more, 750 and 1,500. So it really pays off to bid these slams if you can, but it also means if you don't make it, you don't get your game bonus. If you do make it, you get your game bonus plus your slam bonus. So if you bid 6 and make 6, if you bid 6 hearts and make 6 hearts, you're going to get 4. You're going to get, 6 times 30 is 180 plus 300 plus 500. So that's going to be 1,280 for one hand. But if you bid 6 and you only make 5, you lose 50 points. So you gain 1,200 or you lose 50. That's the, you can push to try to make slam, but even if you make past game, but you don't make your slam, you lose all those points. Okay, so let's talk about what happens if you go down. Not that anybody here ever goes down, right?
Ha.
Actually, you do need to remember as beginners that everybody goes down a lot in regular bridge. I'm talking about experienced players go down a lot. If you're not going down a good percentage of the time, you're not bidding high enough. You're not being aggressive enough in your bidding. Also, a lot of times you will bid perfectly correctly and you just can't make the bid. It's just not in the cards. So you shouldn't worry about going down. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes if you go down and only lose 50, it keeps the opponents from making a game and getting 620 points. So it's not always a bad thing to go down. As a matter of fact, there's a famous guy in the bridge club that if you start playing duplicate bridge at the bridge center, you will meet this guy eventually. His name is George Watkins, and you can't play a round of bridge with George without hearing him say, down 1 is good bridge. So we need to remember that going down is not necessarily bad, even though it feels bad at the time. But if you do go down, if you don't make the bid, if you don't make the contract that you promised that you were going to make, you lose 50 points for every one you're down. If you're not vulnerable, you lose 100 points for every one you're down if you are vulnerable. If you're doubled, and we'll talk more about doubled next week, but if you get doubled, it doubles the amount of points that you're going down. It also doubles the amount of points that you get if you make your game. But if you go down, it's really, if you're doubled and you go down, it's really the most penalty, the highest penalty is when that happens. Okay, are there any questions about bidding? Does that at least, oh, and one other thing, on the back of the pass card that is in your bidding boxes, the back of the pass card, it shows the amounts if you go down. And then on the back of the doubled card, the red card, which is the doubling card, the red card will give you the amount that if you were doubled and you go down. The cards itself show you what happens if you are doubled and you make your contract. But the back of the pass card and the double card shows what happens if you go down. So you always have that at hand. You don't ever have to worry about how to figure out the scoring. But I think it does help to have a good general idea about a little bit about how the scoring is working. So you can start having a better idea about why it is you should bid the slams and you should bid the games if you can.
This is probably ahead of schedule, but if you're doubled and make your game, do the opponents who have doubled lose more?
Yes, they lose more. You get to double your trick score, plus you get either 50 points or 100 points for the insult that they double you,
Okay,
depending on if you're vulnerable or not vulnerable.
right.
So yeah, you get extra points if they've doubled you. But and that is good that you get double points for that. But the doubling, if you go down, the doubling is, it gets high really fast. And so you lose more than you gain in the doubling. So if you go down. Okay, questions on anything we've covered so far today? All righty then. Next week, or this Wednesday, we're going to be talking about overcalls, and that's the next chapter in the book. Overcalls are when you bid, when the opponents have started the bidding, and how you do that and when you do that. So we'll be covering that then. And I will send out the preemptive bidding handout after the session is over today, so everybody can have a hard copy of that if you weren't in the class last Wednesday. Okay. All right, guys, I will see y'all on Wednesday.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. You won't see me,
Bye-bye.
but I'll
Okay, I'll
listen
see
to
some
the
of you
Zoom
then.
session next week.
Oh, okay. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Sally.
Bye-bye. Thank you.